Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Let's talk about those 49ers. Couple of weeks ago, I said that the 49ers were the best team in the NFL, and it wasn't really with question. I thought that they had a good gap in the NFC. I thought that they had a good gap in the NFL, just seeing how they were playing. A collective unit on defense, everyone buying into the system. Kyle Shanahan, Steve Wilkes looking good defensively. Even some things I thought that they could clean up. I thought that with those deficiencies in certain aspects, I still thought I saw a very good football team. After the video, exactly the day after the video, they went on a 3-game losing streak, and a lot of people backed off of this team. Some people backed off of Brock Purdy. Some people backed off of Steve Wilkes. And I think coming off of the bye week, the last 2 weeks, a win over Jacksonville and a win over Tampa Bay, we've seen an adjustment. A collective adjustment, not only from Steve Wilkes coming out of the box, coming to the sideline on the football field, not only from Kyle Shanahan, what he's doing, and also getting a healthy Deebo Samuel back into the lineup, coming off of the bye week in a reinvigorated mindset from Fred Warner, all of the guys. Now, I want to give my condolences to Tyler Noah Hufanga. Probably going to be out for the season with the ACL, but I think even still, this is a very good team, and they have very high expectations and great hopes for the season. Now, when talking about why they're flourishing in these past 2 weeks following the bye, I want to start off with Javon Hargrave. Had a pretty good statement, and I think it's one that can resonate a little bit with anybody, really. This is in life, and this is in football. He said, yeah, it's hard not to, and this is referring to buying into the media. Everyone's saying, man, you're so good, pat on the back, you're doing so great, you're playing so well, and it's hard not to buy into a statement like that. And when you hear that statement, you get kind of complacent. Man, we're so good. We'll beat these teams. We'll be all right. Everyone's telling us we're so good. We are those guys. And it's not that you never were those guys. It's that you start to hear that. And when that creeps into your ear, now you have a level of complacency. Now you have a level of contentness. And then you go out on the football field and you don't have that same hunger. You don't have that same dog in you, that same drive that we saw that got you up to that point to where you earned that pat on the back. He said everyone's got to learn from it. I think we're seeing that process right now. Just not reading too much into it, not looking at it too much. They say it's a little poison when everyone's telling you how good you are. That's a quote from Javon Hargrave coming out of the bye week. And like I said, I think you can resonate with it. I think a lot of people, this is your job, this is your everyday life, whatever you do. But on the football field, it's massive, massive, massive that you don't buy into the media is what they're saying. Now, since then, Brock Purdy, he also spoke a little bit. He talked about having a chip on his shoulder, how he kind of stepped away from that and started to not play the same. And we saw it, some uncharacteristic turnovers against the Minnesota Vikings, against the Cleveland Browns. But now we're seeing a more concise player. We're seeing a guy with a perfect passer rating in the last game against Tampa Bay. So bringing in this quote, Brock Purdy spoke, and he said he was approaching the game as if he had to prove himself every drive. Every time he goes out there, he has that chip on his shoulder, and he's thinking he's Mr. Irrelevant. He's thinking he's that guy that was the last pick in the draft, that was almost an undrafted free agent. That's how I'm approaching every drive. That's how I'm approaching practice. That's how I'm approaching these film sessions, having that mindset and coming back into it. And we're seeing this in his last 2 games. The guy is 40 of 51, 629 yards, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. And when we saw he has 5 interceptions on the season, and guess what? Coincidentally enough, all 5 of his interceptions came during that 3-game losing streak. So we're getting out of this now. And I think what's been the most impressive for me is how he's hitting the deep shot now. We saw last week against Jacksonville, he hit the deep shot to George Kittle. We saw this past game against Tampa Bay, he hit the deep shot to Brandon Ayuk. I know this is a guy, and I talked about it on film as well. He can hit the short passing game. He can hit the intermediate with consistency against man coverage, zone coverage, improvisation skills, getting out of the pocket. He can do all of that at a pretty elite level. But hitting those deep shots down the football field, attacking the ball with air distance, that's where I wondered, does he have the consistency to continually do that in continuous games? Now I'm seeing a guy, like I said, we just talked about back-to-back games, having those big-time targets down the field, and I want to continue to see that. You have a Jawan James, you have a Deebo Samuel, you have a Ray McCloud if he comes into the game. So you have a plethora of weapons that you can use to stretch the football field, and we're seeing a guy who's accurately doing that. Those last 2 games, this is the Brock Purdy that I envisioned. This is the Brock Purdy that I talked about in that film analysis and that breakdown. Now we're seeing it. I did not jump off and said he wasn't elite because I'm looking at this and I'm saying, I respect this team. I respect Philadelphia. I respect Detroit. It's no reason that despite a 3-game losing streak, everyone's feeling as if Brock Purdy is not the guy for San Francisco. So I want to touch on that first. But we also got some things to look at because defensively, and I talked about this, I hinted at it a little bit, but Steve Wilkes coming out of the box down to the sideline. This has been a big time adjustment for this team. And talking about their last 2 games on that side of the ball, they've allowed 17 points. Sacked Trevor Lawrence 5 times, allowed 221 yards versus Tampa Bay. 4 sacks on the day, allowed 287 yards. Teams are not running the football against this team. We're seeing that front. You add in a Chase Young. You still got a Nick Bosa and a Reek Armstead, a Javon Hargrave. All of the things that I talked about. Greenlaw. We got some different things working with the Fred Warner, playing like a defensive player of the year candidate. So I think all of these things, when we pay attention to it and we say, even with Steve Wilks coming down to the sideline, he downplayed it a little bit. He said that the team understands. They were a little fatigued. They were getting in their own heads a little bit, starting to hear what the media is saying, like Javon Hargrave alluded to, Fred Warner, some of the different guys not playing their best brand of football, but now coming into it, even though he's on the sideline, that's not the biggest shift of what we're seeing with this defense. We're seeing a defense who's playing reminiscent of what they did under DeMeco Ryans. We're seeing guys getting after. We're seeing Chase Young making an immediate impact, being that bookend pass rusher alongside of Nick Bosa. And I said it, when they made the move at the trade deadline, I think this is one that can return you great dividends, and we're seeing that thus far. Now, it's 2 games. We're not jumping out. But I think when we talk about Jacksonville, they were being looked at as a top 5 team by multiple media outlets, and then you go out there and win a game like that in the magnitude in which you did it. Tampa Bay, this is a team that even though they've been losing some football games, I still think they have a shot to win their division. So all of these things play into it a little bit, and now I say the San Francisco 49ers are back to their brand of football. But before I get out of here, though, because it's always something we got to think about, I think they do have 2 things that they can clean up, and that's the penalties. Having the penalties that they've had, they had 7 penalties for 90 yards against Jacksonville. They had some penalties against Tampa Bay, and also in the red zone efficiency. Those are 2 things where I will point at and say, okay, we got to clean this up a little bit. Kyle Shanahan, are we hitting Christian McCaffrey? Is it Elijah Mitchell? Are we getting creative when we get in the red zone? Brock Purdy, is it something that we have to clean up in that aspect? I think that's the next step to becoming a more complete team and having a better output on Sundays, Thursdays, or Mondays. This is just discipline, simple things. You play hard, but you want to play under control. You want to play with a mindset that we can't do anything dumb. So I think now, if they clean those 2 things up, this is the team who's still in the thick of things. Now, we got Philadelphia playing Kansas City tonight. We got the Detroit Lions. They just got an ugly win, but they're still in the dogfight. The Dallas Cowboys, they just beat up on the Carolina Panthers. But I still think we look at the San Francisco 49ers, it's going to be a dogfight. Let me know down below, if you're a 49ers fan or not, who would win the NFC right now today as you watch this video? That's going to wrap it up, and I just want to talk about this team today because I think they're flourishing. I think they're back to what I really expected them to be and what I thought they always were. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. That's going to do it for today, and now we are.